All right, so local customer brought this in, and yeah, you guessed it, we're doing a turbo kit on this thing. The turbo kit that he had before, he didn't like how the runners ran and everything, so he brought it to me, and we're going to do a fairly simple and straightforward crossover setup. The manifolds that he has on here already had V-bands welded on, so I had to machine a couple V-bands to fit the male specific groove on that. But other than that, it's pretty straightforward. A couple small things we're gonna take care of for him while it's here. Obviously we're gonna trim up, you know, this piece here. I don't like how that sticks out. And then when he was doing some cutting and everything, he nicked it's like a pinch weld here on both sides of the frame rail. So I'm going to clean this all up, and then I'll weld that shut so that that's not a weak spot. And then once we get that handled, then we can move on to, you know, getting everything positioned and everything. He's running a VS Racing 7875. It's a billet wheel deal, T4 flange. It is a twin scroll turbo, but we're just gonna run a single inlet, which will be perfectly fine. But yeah, so we're gonna be using 2 1/4 inch tube. We're gonna go down. We're gonna try to stay under the pulley area right here. And the reason that is because of how the radiator hose is. Not that that's bad, that's perfectly fine, but we just wanna try to get that down low. We might go underneath the front of the oil pan with that front runner. So come down with that runner here, and then this runner will cross over top of it, and then it'll Y in and then come up to the turbo. Turbo will sit here, kind of at like an angle, and then we're gonna do a 3.5 inch downpipe. That's gonna come right out of the fender here, along with both of the wastegate dump tubes. This is a pretty slick street setup. It is I believe it's a 5.3. The casting number on the heads has me, you know, second guessing myself. Let me see, where are they at? I haven't looked at it in a while. 853. Oh, okay. So these, I believe these are a Corvette style cylinder. So yeah, Cathedral port. It's a 5.3, and then he has a 6-speed in this car, which is pretty slick. And one thing that I appreciate with this car is the customer's wiring job in the back is really clean and tidy. Getting underneath of it, I did see a few things that I'm going to mention to him. He said this was his first main, you know, big build, and there was just a couple small things I noticed. For instance, when you're laying underneath the car, you could see it, but like the ground strap and then the crank trigger or the crank signal wire is pretty close to the manifold. So there's a couple, you know, you can zip tie stuff to the starter to kind of get stuff tucked away and down. But other than that, I mean, I haven't really seen anything that's like, you know, like detrimental where I'm like, this thing shouldn't even be on the road. Like technically it can be on the road, how it is, which is pretty nice. If you just pay attention to even the smallest details. I don't care if you buy cheap parts, just, you know, install them like you care, and it goes a long way. This car has some good parts on it. There's areas you can cheap out on, and that's where you cheap out, and you can have a really nice daily, like just a fun street car. So enough talking. We're gonna get into this. Again, basic 5.3, 7875 from VS Racing. We're gonna do like a headlight area mounted turbo, 2 1/4 inch primaries up to a 2.5 inch secondary that will go up to the T4 flange. And then we will do a single wastegate. And with a T4 flange, the turbo selection is kind of like, boom, it's wide range. And they make adapters, T4 to T6, where you can just get a T6 adapter and you can put a stinking massive snail on this thing. So we're gonna go ahead and get into it. Let's do it. There we go. So we got this first section started, right? And so this is what I was talking about right here. It kind of comes down. It sits far enough back here. Sits up high enough where ground clearance won't be an issue at all. And then this kind of sits farther back than the outlet of this manifold. So I've got the collector cut. I've got that cut, it's purged. We're gonna start welding it up. So let's go ahead and do that really quick. All right, so got our purge blocks here, our purge plugs. Here's one thing, when welding close to, you know, this weld is really close to here, so I can't use my, you know, silicone ones. So I go to my aluminum ones, which these ones work perfectly for jobs like this. And I hope the audio is okay with this. So using these plugs, these aluminum plugs, will one, prevent from melting down the, you know, the plug, and it'll help keep this round, get it purged, get it welded up. The only downside of using aluminum plugs like this that I have found is when the tube starts moving around and everything, they can literally fall out, which is kind of annoying when you're mid-weld and something like that happens. But yeah, so we got our welder set at 80 amps right now. Purge is set at about the same as always, 910 CFH. And if you ever question that, grab yourself one of these gauges so that you can double check and verify that what you're getting out of your regulator is what you're getting here. So bigger tubing and stuff like that, I'll obviously ramp it up a little bit, maybe 12 CFH. But generally 10 is a good clean number. So we've got our setup, we got our microfuric, the ceramic BBW cup. We've got our Weld Demon 045 filler wire. We're gonna go ahead and get set up and get this dude welded out. And this is just straight amps, so. Fantastic. All joking aside, this is the one I was using for the majority of it. I was just joking around. This is the SSBBW, so it's just, you know, it's a little bigger than the normal BBW. But then you have the monster. Like, look how big this thing is, dude. But anyways, we gotta weld it up. All right. Figured I'd do a quick little, kind of just, this is Evan brainstorming 101. So I got the turbo on the, you know, the turbo jack stand. And I'm sitting here thinking. And one thing I realized after I got it kind of positioned is, so this right here, you can see this is the oil drain fitting. It's in the timing cover. Now that's not a problem. It's really not. The problem is with where the turbo is currently. So I have the stand on this side of the frame rail, and I was just thinking about it, and I was thinking, man, you know, this would work. This position works. I like this position. But there's a couple things. One thing being, obviously, that with the turbo on this side of the frame rail, the oil drain, it's not going to be ideal. The drain would have to come down and then loop. And if you can kind of see, this fitting is just shy of the frame rail. So it's not, it wouldn't be an incline. You know, gravity fed systems, they require exactly gravity. So it would be more ideal to have it in the pan about like right here or right here in the front corner. But that's obviously not going to work. He's already got the motor in the car. It's all sealed up and everything. Now, if the pan was to ever come off and change, obviously a different story. That's not what we're working with. What we're working with is we're working with a car that runs, right? Technically, the car is done. Aside from a turbo kit, it's done. So I'm sitting here looking at this thinking, man, I like this position, you know, it looks good. It gives them a little room to grow. But what if, and just hear me out, what if we move the turbo to where instead of the drain, you know, being on that side of the frame rail, what if we put it on this side of the frame rail? The only thing then I thought of was, well, then the flange would be right on top of the frame rail. But this is where being able to adjust the compressor housing and turbine housing, we can kind of get that situated right. So what we'll probably do is we'll move it over here, and that'll put the turbo kind of in an open space. It'll give it more room. It'll still be able to clear everything. The drain will work. And then the turbine housing will just point over to where the flange points over this way. And then all the hot stuff will be kind of over there and down under like I had planned anyways. So I think that's what we're going to do. I think that'll work. It'll also give a little more room for the downpipe, a little more length, and we can snake it around to where it's not close to the tire. But yeah, that's just kind of like, those are some of the things that you deal with when you're building custom setups is, you know, thinking ahead to what the customer needs. And then also moving that turbo inboard like that, like I had just ran you guys through, that customer will then almost have, like, it's the never ending. Like, he'll be able to run any size turbo he wants in that location, any T4 size. If he wanted to switch to V-band, and this is why I use the flanges I use. This flange, if you can tell, has just a circle, right? So instead of me forming a tube square, it's just circle. So let's say he orders a bigger turbo, but it's a V-band inlet or outlet. Or let's say he orders a T6 turbo, and it is a T6 flange. They make 2.5-inch circle flanges. So you just cut it right there, you prep it all, drop another flange on there, get it orientated just right. If it's a V-band, you just drop it on there, weld it on, and then you're set. But this is kind of like the small stuff that as an individual you may not think about, but as a fabricator, being able to think from the start to the finish and connect the dots in between is a pretty big deal. I think that's what we're going to do with the turbo. So All right, so as you saw last night, we were working on getting the crossover and everything all sorted, turbo position, that kind of stuff. So that turbo position is right there. And this is what we came up with. So as you can see, the runner goes down and under. Oh, let's see, better angle. Yeah, there we go. Wastegate right here. You know, crossover goes down and under. Pretty simple. Gives enough room for the tire to turn in. All that good stuff, so we're good there. Wastegate will place here. Once I get the wastegate on here, I'm making the mount right now. I'm going to use the 2 bolts here and then make a tab that bolts or welds to the frame and comes up underneath the side here and does that. But yeah, pretty excited with how it's turning out. Looks killer. The one thing is I used a slip joint here just so that there's, you know, margin for error. And I got a couple tabs, so I'll weld the tab on this side and here, and then on the back side, and they'll have bolts that will lock. Yeah, you'll tighten them to a certain point and then stop. And that is simply to give it some expansion so that when you're going to assemble it and everything or take it apart, it's never a bear. Now, keep in mind, what I have found with stuff like this, and some V-bands even, is if you have an issue with them leaking, just take some copper RTV, put a little bead, and then bloop, and that'll seal it up. But then also with these slip joint style, the carbon deposits will do their thing, and they'll seal it up too. So not that big of a deal, but that's what it turned out like. I like it. Turned out pretty good. From up top here, it's nice and like tucked back, like you don't really see it. And the other nice thing too is it kind of keeps it away from, you know, the charge piping and everything. So pretty excited about it. Looks good. Goes down right there. If he wants to heat wrap it, you know, more power to him, do that. But trying to make this as simple as possible, as I had mentioned. Obviously, what's going to happen here is we're going to have, you know, bolts will come in from top here. And then you'll have nuts on the bottom that'll secure to the brace there. Very simple brace idea just to support it. That's it. I mean, honestly, like it's got a lot of, you know, it's pretty robust, but you know, just add a brace. The motor is solid mounted, like I had mentioned, so just gonna do something simple, and that's it. Once we get that done, we'll mount the turbo up. We'll get the charge pipe on this side sorted. And then once we get that done, then we'll work on getting the bumper exit setup done. So we're going to keep going. I made a cardboard template of what I was kind of needing. And then I traced it onto some steel. I got the holes drilled. I got it kind of marked out. We're going to cut this thing out really quick. So yeah, just going to cut. And then I'll use the wheel here to contour this. And the reason I have to do this is because of the tube, where the tube goes on the flange. It needs to be able to clear that. And then I'll round this all off, make it all fancy, clean it up, and then this will weld directly to the frame. This will bolt to the turbo, and then that'll be it. So pretty simple, but it'll get the job done. And the other thing too is later date, if he changes it, it's like not that big of a deal just to, you know, like if he goes V-band or something, we can add a bolt-on flange that bolts onto those 2 bolt holes and then wraps around the tube, and then you weld that to that. So like doing a basic style like that will also work later on too, if that makes sense. But we'll get that cut out, and then we'll get that thing welded on. This is what you're talking about when you want to get, it's so hard to see that though, but you can see penetration around the weld. Let's see if we can, there we go. There we go, you can see it, so boom. So as much as I hate doing this, I don't have any more content of that car. Like I literally finished the bumper exit stuff and shipped it on its way. Didn't get any more footage of it. So that is my bad. I apologize. But yeah, it turned out pretty well. I figured I'd post this up regardless of the amount of content I got on it. There was a few things left on it that I could have recorded. I was just on it, and then my brother was here today, and then the customer was picking the car up, and so I just didn't really have, my brain wasn't there, so that's my bad. But he put it on a trailer. He's got to do oil drain, oil feed, a couple other small things, I think, and then he's ready to go. But yeah, so that's a wrap on that, and then we have another one rolling up too for some simple stuff. Gonna get back to work, so hope you guys stay safe. And like I said in my other videos, you know, if you want to support the channel, you can buy merch through the Teespring that's associated with the YouTube channel. You can, if you're buying a welder, you know, abrasive supplies, links in the bio, go down there, utilize those links. You get discounts, you get upgrades on your welder. That was a genuine jump scare. You can hear it still over there. Anyways, that's how you can support the channel. If you use the link through the EverLast link there, you get, if you're ordering like a TIG machine, you get a free TIG and pedal upgrade. It's free automatically when you order something through EverLast with the link. Other codes give discounts, so use them. That's how you can support the channel. Not gonna really do anything other than that. Hit like, share, subscribe. Let me know what you guys think down below. Future stuff, I will definitely try to make sure that I get all of it. But yeah, so crazy.